Okay, I think we are going live now. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Joy Kerr. I'm just the moderator for this hangout. We are doing Edcamp Home 3.0 Session 2. It's a conversation, and it's about Genius Hour, so let's get it started. Why don't we start from the left and go and introduce ourselves and say one thing we want to know about today or one thing we want to talk about. Who's there? Go ahead, Kara.
I am Kara from Missouri, and I started Genius Hour at the end of the year, kind of, so I'm kind of new to it. But I'm wanting just help kind of with getting kids being able to pace themselves a little bit better. So within the time is what I'm thinking.
Who's that? Janine?
Oh, am I next?
Yeah.
Yeah. My name is Janine Hill. I am from Casper, Wyoming. I've taught high school chemistry for 17 years, and last year was the first year I took a new role as instructional facilitator, so I'm a teacher's coach. And I just learned about Genius Hour. I went to ISTE last week, and then through edcampHOME, I was like, Genius Hour, what's that? And so I work with all teachers K through 12, and I just have a few in mind that would just love the idea of Genius Hour. So I'm just here brand new to learn about it and how I can share it with other teachers in my district, because I think it has some great opportunities for kids.
Beautiful. Go for it, Laura.
My name's Laura Robertson, and I am from Charlottesville, Virginia, and I'm a American Studies teacher and the Humanities Department chair at an independent school. And we talked about bringing Genius Hour into as kind of an alternative to study hall last year. And then we did use it in some of our classes in different grade levels. And I guess what I'm interested in thinking about is whether Genius Hour needs to be connected to a specific class, or whether in, for example, a schedule that has, enough, quote, free time or unscheduled time, if it could in fact just be a part of the school day, and just getting ideas about that.
All right. Who's that? Megan.
Well, I'm back from the other session. I teach kindergarten, and I'm just trying to wrap my head around how I can implement this without a lot of guiding for them. I don't want to put any specific ideas or thoughts in their head. I want them to take off with this, but I'm not sure how that would look in kindergarten. So any advice would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, go ahead, Cheryl.
Hi, I'm Cheryl from Miami, Florida. I teach English to students who don't know English, so I'm an ESOL teacher and at the high school, grades 9 through 12. And I'm very excited about using Genius Hour in my class because my students come from all over the world, but I'm having a really hard time convincing administration that the students pass their tests, especially their end-of-year exams. So I'm just here sort of to get some ideas on how I can get administrative buy-in and how I can relate. I have no problem relating it to Common Core standards. That's easy. But how I get administrators to understand that my students are still going to be able to pass their end-of-course exams in reading.
Okay. So in the last session, it was almost like an interview, and I don't want it to be like that. I want you guys to help each other out. So since it's a discussion, we sort of have how to share with other teachers and administrator buy-in. That sort of goes together because you're trying to get other teachers to buy in as well. I think a lot of it's about the engagement of the students, but if you're trying to get other teachers to do anything, what would you do? Or if you're trying to tell administration that we need to be doing this, what would you do?
I can speak mainly from the ESOL or the ESL standpoint because I was the ESL director at my school for the last 12 years. And what I would say is that anytime you can get kids to read more, which they will do if they're actually interested in the topic and they're following their own passion, their test scores and everything else is going to go up. You can actually get a lot more buy-in from those kids. Plus, one thing that we did was have kids kind of research in both their native language and in English and kind of talk about the differences between the two. So there might be a way to do that as well. But I would think that, especially in an ESL classroom, this would be a huge kind of successful way to get students to buy in and go beyond the scope of what you're regularly requiring them to do in terms of reading. That's what I would try.
Come on, other ideas. All right, some of it is about the time, too, and how you fit it in. And if you want to connect it to reading, that's a great way to fit it in. Now, if you're talking kindergarten like Megan is, it might be more about, well, finding the resources at kindergarten. There is a page on the Live Binder about, let me look and find it. It's for primary age kids who can't read that well. And now my internet's not working well. It's a resource that's shared for kids who don't read yet. Here it is. Kindergarten. It's called pebblego.com, PEBBLE-go.com. And I don't know if you have to have a registration for it or not. It's an emergent reader resource, it says. Yeah, you have to log into it, usernames and passwords. But it says that it's leveled text, and it's navigated specifically for your beginning researchers. So that might be a good way about getting it accepted in kindergarten, but I know we were talking about the high school for that and the testing. So maybe if we find more information on how reading more does increase test scores, does anybody have anything that we can look at for that? Is there proof?
I'm looking for, yeah, well, it does increase. I know that there's evidence, and I could find the link, but if I start messing with my internet right now, I'm going to lose everybody. There is evidence that more reading increases like standardized test scores with things like SATs, and we use that. We tout that out all the time with our kids when we're talking about independent reading. So yeah, there is that. And in terms of English language acquisition, there is a ton of evidence that increased reading, increases comprehension. And I'm less familiar with your standardized tests that you guys give in public schools and the Common Core than other people who teach in the public schools. But I know that there is increased reading is increased learning. I'm putting in the text box the Twitter handle of a really great kindergarten teacher who my daughter had last year and who teaches at my school, who is. She doesn't call it Genius Hour, but that's what she's doing. And she would have great resources for you as a kindergarten teacher.
Great,
she's
thank
amazing.
you.
So that's in the text box.
Awesome.
Miss Lindsay,
so much.
well, let's say it for everybody.
Yeah, Miss Lindsay 12. I'm not sure how much that was her classroom Twitter handle, but she is phenomenal, and she totally let the kids direct the entire class, and they built huge ramps throughout the room, and they studied art for a month and a half, and it was a collaborative Genius Hour, and that might be more what ends up, the kids kind of as a group decided where they were going, and they kind of went together, which might be easier with little ones. But I saw it in action. I don't know how she did it, but I saw how excited all the kids were and how amazing it was.
I'm there now too. Mrs. Danielle Port is her name. She did second grade collaboratively like that, at least for the first quarter, so everybody could work on it together. And do you guys know Karen Learman?
Yeah.
It's not Surrey. It's Vancouver, I believe it. I don't think she calls it Genius Hour either, but the choice that she gives her students is crazy wild, and they run the class as well. And that's nice to see too. So you don't have to, it's not an hour. You can choose it as a philosophy. Okay, what book would you guys like to read today, or what would you like to write about, or what kind of stories do you want to tell, or have some sort of just that choice involved. That's what's really important, because by the time they get to 7th grade or high school, they don't understand what it means to make a choice anymore. Kara, we haven't talked about pacing yet. Tell us more about what you want to know about pacing, and then we'll try and help you out.
Just in general, so we did a 9-week session, so one time a week for 9 weeks, and it just seemed like some kids I felt like were done in 2 weeks and and then other kids it was like next time's your last time, and they were still stuck someplace, or not even stuck, but they just took them longer. So how to kind of teach them that process of a timeline and how to, I guess, maybe use their time a little more effectively is what I'm thinking.
What do you guys think?
I think that's an issue with all student work and not just Genius Hour. I find the same. We have the same. We let kids choose whatever they want when we do a 12-page research paper, and they can choose whatever topic from American history. And we just do a lot of steps and checkpoints along the way. But there's some kids that, like, no matter how many checkpoints and how many times you tell them that, like, this is the final deadline, you can't really necessarily get them to follow that. But I would say, like, a lot of checkpoints along the way, having, like, really structured, at this point you should be 20% done with your project, or 40% done with your project, or 60 might be helpful, and having them keep a journal along the way of what they're doing, what they still need to do. A lot of times I think they don't necessarily know what they need to do in order to finish, and whether finishing, they might need to change the end goal. They might not be doing, everything that they thought. They might be doing really deeply one of the things that they thought they were going to do. So maybe more kind of reflection along the way.
And how much do you put into that? So, because I want it to be theirs, but then sometimes they don't get there. So, I mean, encouraging them just to narrow it down, that kind of thing.
We have a capstone project in the 12th grade, and that is like a student-invented class. And so basically they chart out exactly what their class is going to be, what they're going to read, what they're going to do, what their final product is going to be, and then they have different presentations along the way. And I'd be happy to send you, like, the manual that we use. It might be adaptable for what you're talking about. I think that you could give them options within that, as far as, like, we give them options. Like, some options might be you might want to blog about it. You might want to keep a journal. You might want to do something else. Like, there's other ways to kind of meet your checkpoints, but they define what their checkpoints are. So that might also be a good way to start with, like, giving them the sense of, like, what do you want to be done with at this point? Where do you need to be at this point? What are you going to ultimately produce, and how are you going to go about that, and coming up with their own schedule? Because I think that is also helpful, and it gives them ownership of the whole process.
Okay, perfect. I like them establishing their own checkpoints. That's helpful. So,
Laura, what town are you from? I like the idea of the capstone and the students choosing their own.
Charlottesville, Virginia, and I can send you. I'm not sure where I put this. I'm happy to send you the manual that we came up with, and it's a great class, and kids do everything from developing apps to talking about kind of romanticism and the use of. I'm trying to think of the ones we had last year. The use of kind of the wilderness as a romantic image through different authors, or write their own novel, or. It's been a huge and wide range thing, and kids don't have to do it. It's a choice, and we have about, I'd say, 18 out of 90, or about 20% of the class will choose to do it, and it's great. It's amazing. I wish more would do it, but I'd be happy to send you the link of the manual and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, let me see if I can.
There's one thing that you touched on that you're in 5th grade, right, Kara?
Yeah.
Have you talked to Paul Solars yet?
We've chatted some. Yeah, he has amazing stuff.
He's got it all organized for his 5th grade, but
yes.
I think too that he takes on the, like, first he gives them guidelines saying you can go this way. Or first he leaves it all open, and then the kids who need guidelines, he gives them these certain topics. Well, why don't you go with this area, either making or reading or writing or whatnot. And if the kids need the scaffolding, he gives it to them, but if they don't, he leaves them alone. But what I found really important in this is the one-on-one conferences. And I see my 7th graders every other week, for conferences. I mean, I see them all every week, but I check in with them every other week. And the kids who are done early, that's when I can say, like Laura said, you know, okay, how deep are you going to go with this? Or they can actually present for the class then if they think they're done. But then I say you've got to make sure that you are really sharing your learning now and ready to go on to another project, because then I let them go on to another project. You know, if they're not that deep in it yet, they can see where the other kids are going then that quarter, and maybe next quarter they can change it up and say, okay, we're going to try this quarter instead because I wasn't really getting to the gist of it last time. And so maybe you can have some flexibility there, like if you're okay with them stopping and at least sharing what they've learned.
Yeah.
And going on if they have to.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Okay.
How much time are you guys spending a week in Genius Hour?
We have a 40-minute block. So we do Fridays for 40 minutes.
Friday. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you doing it yet, Laura? You're not doing it yet, right?
Well, we do. I mean, yes and no. Like some of our class, like our seniors spent a chunk of time at the end of the year pretty much just doing Genius Hour in their English class. So I would say that it's not like a regular, like every Friday thing, although now we have a rotating 6-day schedule, so nothing is every Friday. But I'm more kind of interested in, you know, we have a 2-hour block in the middle of the day that has community time and stuff like that, and what I would love to see is that to be a time when kids could follow their passions and do Genius Hour, and I'm just wondering how successful it could be out of the context of a class. Like, does it have to be in the context of a class, or could we just be, you know, fostering curiosity? Because one of the things that worries me, and I love technology and I've always been an early adopter of it, is that I do see a diminished curiosity among my students. I do see that because it's all at their fingertips that they're less likely to go out and kind of go beyond their fingertips. And I'm wondering if this is one way where, like, if all the school was engaged in something like this for a set amount of time every week or every 6 days, if that would in fact create a climate of curiosity, which is something that I would like to see more of.
Yeah, I think you have to do that. I think you have to create that climate of curiosity and then give them the time. Some people are doing it after school in clubs, but those kids are naturally curious.
Yeah.
And I feel like we have to give it to the kids who aren't, and we have to almost force it. And, you know, because in that last session, I remember saying that, like, those kids who get A's are really good at playing school, but they're not good at being curious. They're not good at going outside the box like they need to in order to survive in this next world that they're getting to, you know. And I feel like it has enhanced curiosity. I do it on Mondays. I do it the first day of the week, whether it's a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. I don't know if I can do that again next year or not, but it's always our first day of the week. And I feel like they're excited to come to school on Mondays, and that's telling. You know, and that's why I do it on Mondays, because on Friday, everybody's just ready to go home, and I feel like they're worn out and they're just going to fluff off anyway. So half of our team does it on Fridays, and then the other half gets to do it on Mondays. And I like it when they come to school and they're like, oh, it's Monday, what are we going to do today? They're like, oh, it's Genius Hour, and they get so excited, and that spurs me on, and that spurs everybody else on. And I think the more they share their curiosities, the more the other kids get more curious. That's one part I didn't do as well this year, is let them share more often than not. You know, you don't have a lot of time. And I have an 80-minute block. I'm very fortunate to have an 80-minute block of reading and writing every day. And so I spend the first 20 minutes doing what we have to do. You know, you need to turn in this, or we need to talk about this before, and this is what the week's going to look like. And then they get an hour to themselves. But what I really need to do is stop 5 to 10 minutes at the end and share out what everybody's learning or what they're still wondering about, because then they help each other out. And that's really neat to see them work together and say, well, hey, did you try this? Or, oh, it would be great if you could add this. And that just sparks it even more. And that curiosity isn't diminished as much as, you know, you do see it in junior high and high school. You see it go down. But that engagement is really what keeps me going with it. That's why I keep wanting to do it.
So do you think it's better to do one day where you can devote more time, or multiple days during the week with less time?
I think it depends on your age. You know, I think the 7th graders, they need that hour because it takes them 5 to 10 minutes to get into it. What are we going to do? You know, and then to clean up, it takes forever. But I don't know how long the little ones can stay still or stay focused on one thing. You know, I don't know. I know with high school, they're doing it for one period a day. A lot of them, because they call it 20% time, so it's one period for the week. And I think spacing it out, you don't have all your materials, you don't have your plan in front of you, you don't know what you're going to do for the big chunk. And when we do have a big chunk, my kids can go outside as long as there's a teacher supervising them. You know, they can measure the hallways for their Minecraft school, or they can, you know, go talk to certain people. And I think that that bigger chunk once a week is helpful. And then maybe on another day you can just check in with them and say, what are you going to do next week? Just have that plan ready to go. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think with older kids, more time is great. I think with next year, our lower school, I teach at a K-12 school, and our lower school is going to have a huge chunk of time on Friday when they're just going to be doing Genius Hour. They're not calling it Genius Hour. I don't know what they're calling it. Maybe Passion something. But I think they're slightly concerned about it, but I also know that they're going to have a 2-hour chunk of time, and I know that, like, from watching Lindsay with my daughter, that she spent a ton of time with kindergartners. So I guess it just depends on, like, the teacher, what the teacher's comfortable with, and how, you know, how it all works out. I think it also helps that we have really small classes. I don't know what that looks like with 30 kids. You know, she had 12 kids. That's a whole different ball of wax. So I think it's not just the age. I also think it's the setup.
Yeah, the setup, including that space that you have. And with me and the guy across the hall, we can share our rooms together. You know, the kids can go back and forth, which is nice. And we had about 22 or 25 at the max this year. So it was a little tough. And if you have them working in groups, that's different than if you have them working individually. Or if you let them choose, that's a whole nother ball of wax. And so my motto is just keep tweaking, just keep tweaking. You know, you just got to change it up for whatever works for you and what you can handle, you know?
Yeah, I've heard that not a lot of schools are calling it Genius Hour. What are some other names that you've heard of?
What have you guys heard of? And then I'll fill it in.
20% time.
Yeah,
passion
time.
Those are the only two I can think of right now.
No, that's it? Come on.
Self-directed learning. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of stuff on Twitter.
There's a list on the live binder under how to get started. It's the last tab on that one. It's called names. Be about it, because they say don't just talk about it, be about it. Da Vinci Day, do-it-yourself projects, FedEx days. That's when you have a big day for the school, you know. Innovation days or innovation weeks. I time, it's like me time, but with a little I for like iTunes. Passion projects or passion time. P-Day, that's Passion Day. Ship It Days, Valiant Ventures, Venture Incubator, and Wonder Workshop.
Oh, wow.
Those are the ones I've seen. There are probably more out there. But it's all about the curiosity, it's about the wondering, it's about the engagement, you know, getting them to have choice throughout the day. That's really what it's about. Janine, do you have an overview of?
Yeah, you guys are doing great, and yeah, just as you were throwing out names, I'm like, oh yeah, I can see different teachers doing that, and you know, when I first sat down, I was like, what is Genius Hour? But now, the more you guys are talking, the more better understanding I have of it. One thing I do know that is a big concern. Oh, we just have so much to cover, and you know, I'm just speaking from the teacher's standpoint, but. That's just a hard thing to balance between letting kids loose and covering content and that type of thing. But I know that's always a concern.
I don't think you can call it that, though. If you call it losing content, then no one's going to buy into it.
True. Yeah, and the creativity part and all of that, that's so important. And but I just know that's always in the back of teachers' mind is, if I do this Genius Hour, how am I going to get everything done?
Yeah, and if you take apart like what they're doing, you can sort of see what they are learning. I had 9 kids this year writing novels.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
Right? And I had 4 kids who just read for Genius Hour, and then they shared the books and the titles that were their favorites and the genres that they didn't get to. You know, and that to me was like gold, you know, and I had some kids who were researching things or making things, and that doesn't really fit in with my English language arts. But then when they had to present, you know, it was about the speaking and listening. And
oh, sure.
So I had to fill that in. I don't feel like we're losing Well, with English language arts, it's easier because I have what I'm supposed to do, but I also have it pretty wide open when we do what we're supposed to do. And so I feel like I've got more leeway that way. But I feel like science, it fits in really well with science. It could fit in really well with history or social studies if you give them, okay, we're going to talk about World War II. I'm going to give you lots of stuff, but look at what else you can research on your own, and then they can choose from there.
Yeah.
And they can choose how to present and all that. I feel like if you look at the different people that you're thinking would jump onto this, if you look at their subject, and see where they could make it work for their curriculum too, that's at least one foot in the door.
Right, and anytime you can give kids voice and choice, you're halfway there too. So.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. We have like 5 minutes left. Should we talk about takeaways? What do we get out of this session?
One thing, just hearing you speak that made me feel better is because I also worry sometimes about losing time for content. We're losing some time in our schedule this year, a lot actually of time, because I've always had a 100-minute block. So I worry about that. But then hearing what you're saying, it's not necessarily that Genius Hour has to be totally open-ended. It can be choice within some structure, and it can also address the skills. So you're not really, quote, losing time, you're just changing the content. And I think that can be a way that, maybe makes people more open to it. And I'm come from English, so it's easier maybe to do it.
Well, and I think her example of World War II is a great example. Get a topic and, here's some main ideas, but what else do we want to learn? You guys go for it type of idea.
And that engages them more, and you want them to be engaged in learning or they're not going to learn your subject anyway. If they're not going to want to come to your class because they have no choice at all, then you've lost them right away off the beginning. Yeah. And if you do it once a week, like if you really do it, you really learn about the kids. And that really helps you with the rest of your week. So-and-so is really into baseball. Well, do you know what they did during World War II for baseball? And so-and-so is really into creating on Minecraft. Well, what did they do before they had that? They actually created mines. You could go into all of that, and you really get to know the kids, and that's the best part, because then you work for the rest of your year with these kids that you really know, and you make that community of learning, and it's about learning, and it's about choice, and I guess I'm a little passionate about it myself.
Cool. Neat.
Kara, what's your takeaway?
I think just kind of what she had talked about, of having them make their checklist of here's what I want to accomplish by 2 weeks. Here's what I want to accomplish. So I think that kind of helps me, where I feel like they're still driving the process, but helping them to narrow down that there is a timeline.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. Megan, did it help at all for kindergarten?
Absolutely. Great resources. I'm going to contact all these people. I'm noticing in kindergarten that the whole idea of developmentally appropriate practice is kind of going away. It's becoming so structured, and there's so much content to get in there that I think just this whole idea just brings it all back, and it really refocuses, and it helps people realize that this is what it's all about. It's about finding their interests, making that connection with them, and they can go so far with that kind of attention.
Yeah. Yay!
So, Joy, would you share your live binder that you mentioned?
Oh, you just want me to put a link to it? Because it's
sure.
If you just Google live binder Genius Hour, there are a few on there. I know Mike Stein put one on there for his. Oh, I don't want that link. Hold on. For his students, I have one on there for my students. Julie G has one on there for her students. I have one on there for my ELA plan specifically, like what I want to do, because I shared that with the 3 other teachers that I work with. But Live Binders is such a great tool, and if you have it for your students then too, if you were talking about like tech tools, or Megan can put like a whole bunch of tools on there that her kids can actually access on a Live Binder and say, here's your one link, go to it, click on those tabs, and what can you find? And they're so helpful, the ladies there. So there are a whole bunch of Live Binders if you search Live Binders Genius Hour, but I put the link in our chat.
Okay, good.
But there are so many people trying it with their kids and adding different resources to their Live Binders, so I'm trying to put it on the big Live Binder, and it's just great everybody's talking about this student choice and voice and going with students' passions and yay! And I won't be able to sleep tonight. My takeaway is actually it comes from Megan. We need that in 7th grade too. We need that in high school too. They're all developmentally different, you know, and some of my kids can't read really well, and some of my kids can't write really well. So how do I, you know, I have 4 days a week that are probably really frustrating for them, that they're struggling with the rest of the week. And so this is one day they can feel successful, and I need to keep that in mind too when they're goofing off the other 4 days because they don't get it, and I can't get it to them like I want it to. So that caught me. You know, it's not just kindergarten. It's every grade. We want it to be developmentally appropriate to them. Yeah. Anything else? No? Okay, keep checking that hashtag. Genius Hour hashtag and 20 time hashtag for the upper grades. It's just 20 time. You can't put in the percentage there. And I think there was a hashtag for passion projects or passion time as well. But that might be something else. I think I tried it once and then it got a little goofy, so I took it off. But open those up and check it out.
Okay, thanks everybody.
All right, thanks so much.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Bye.